So, welcome everybody to the LinkedIn Ads Lab episode 3. A good friend of mine, Gery Slov, is here to join us today to speak about LinkedIn ads and all the different companies he's worked with and all the different strategies he's implemented. I'm delighted to have Gery on because he was one of the most innovative LinkedIn ads managers I've ever seen. Some of the stuff he done over the years was the first time I've ever seen it, and the first to market with a lot of things. So I'm sure he's going to bring us lots of insight and ideas today. But Gery, I'll pass it over to you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do at the minute, who you're working with at the minute, and then how you got into what you're doing.
Sure. So first of all, thanks Rob for the opportunity being here. Yeah, it takes a lot of we know each other for a lot of time, so it's nice to have this convo. So yeah, my name is Gery. I'm doing, I would say, SaaS B2B marketing for the last 15 years of my entire career. Started as a copywriter back in the days, and then worked with some marketing agencies, and then pivoted to like digital advertising. And in the last, I would say, 4 years, I basically own an agency for SaaS B2B marketing, and we manage lots of clients in different stages from seed to pre-IPO, post-IPOs, mostly based located in EMEA. Yeah, from different verticals, like from cybersecurity to sales to L&Ds, like basically everything.
Before we get into the weeds of who you're working with and what you're doing at the minute, I to start each session with an icebreaker, something that gets you thinking and gets you inspired a little bit. So I have a question in terms of if you were VP of product for LinkedIn, so if you were Tomer Cohen or whoever now, what's something you'd love to do with LinkedIn ads? So you have free reign, free budget, buy-in from the CEO. Let's go. What would you do?
Wow. So I think I would work on, I would say, visibility, but visibility that goes across two ways. One to the advertiser and like what is the impact of LinkedIn on their efforts. We know like leads, we know titles, seniorities, but we need a bit more depth into it. Which accounts, which titles, streamline it back so the reporting will be way better and the decision making will be way smarter. And the other thing, I would say, a glimpse of what other, let's say, clients in the industries are doing. So now we have the LinkedIn Ads library, which is a good beginning, but maybe looking at, hey, how this function works across EMEA, how this function works across these type of company sizes, or how competitive this specific segment or industry within the last X time. Just for us to understand as entire like ecosystem of marketers, what are the trends? Like how should we work with?
That's a really good point. I think there's a tool for benchmarking, but it's not as robust as it should be. And I think that kind of comes to your point. It should be readily available to all the advertisers to see where they are to benchmark against each other. But it's really interesting data, and it gives you a good idea of what direction you're going in, even without a LinkedIn rep. And it should be a little bit more advanced. I know you've definitely got I've probably given you benchmarks on certain things before in the past, and I know LinkedIn reps are at the minute. But as you say, it should be more advanced in terms of combination of targeting segments to get benchmarks on that, and to get benchmarks in terms of further down the line metrics. But yeah, fully with you on that. Good ideas. I hope product team is listening.
Yeah, implement it fast.
Cool. So let's jump into what you're doing now. I want to talk a little bit about the businesses that and the verticals that you're operating in, SaaS, cybersecurity, and a couple of others. I want to ask a question first around the commonalities within those industries. What do you see that kind of seems to be common themes that are across industry? Are there certain things you can see that with LinkedIn ads that seem to work across industries?
So I would say that everybody simply says, if we're going to see it's working, we're going to expand the budget, like limitless. and working is different for each and every one of these like industries. So some of them want to coin a new category, some of them want to dominate a category, some of them just in the early stage of POCs trying to understand their ICP, and this is what will be working for them. So eventually I think that everybody across all these industries, up and down in the market, they just want to see some kind of signal that the return on investment is actually worth it. I rarely see accounts just spending money just to see if their like audience is there, if someone resonates. Like usually I'm not suggesting doing it. It's just a waste of money. Take this like 10 grand, 20 grand, put it in PR, you will see results way faster. So it's usually always like result driven. Let's see the results coming. So this is across of everything. And again, the results are changing based on like the business outcome and the stage of the company where they're at currently.
Yeah, do you think that's changed a bit over the years in terms of a couple of years ago it was very lead focused?
Exactly.
Do you feel like it's, yeah, how do you feel it's changed now? You mentioned a couple of them, but
So
yeah.
so like years ago, let's say like we need to go like into 2019. Like it seems like a decade ago, but it's not. 19, 18, 20. It was all about like direct response leads. Like you would see a very precise attribution from LinkedIn. You can see the click, you can see the lead, you can see the like opportunity coming and the closed one routed back to LinkedIn. And it was at the age where LinkedIn was very good at landing pages, and we didn't have lead forms. So it was very easy to work at these times. And then lead generation were implemented, and I think that my account back in the days at February 18, we were the first ones, or one of the first accounts that actually activated Legion forms. I remember it. It was like 20 grand a month on Feb, and then March 78, and then like up to 1 million a month. This was back at the time at WalkMe.
Mm.
And I saw this transition happening. Like you see more and more leads coming, and then suddenly they were very cold, non-responsive, shadowing, no shows to the meeting, and we then tried to transition back to landing pages, but landing pages didn't work. So back at the time, it was like, yeah, leads, MQLs, like the one that we call now MQLs, SQLs, and opportunities. And today it's let's just try to move them through the funnel, like through the awareness to the decision to the from the awareness consideration and the action at the end. And this funnel is very difficult to do nowadays at LinkedIn because you basically you cannot see it. Like you can't see it.
Yeah.
You do remarketing and then you have this audience, another layer of audience, another layer. You try to get them into a marketing funnel, but it's very difficult for you to see the progress of the person of the account. And now it's being led a lot to ABM tools, de-anonymized traffic, see what are the accounts are doing, work more closely to with the LinkedIn teams, have a weekly report of demographic of company impressions, and then try to see what's going on. And suddenly, a lot of tools nowadays like Dream Data, Hockey Stack, Factors AI, Sixth Sense. They're like a very old player, but a lot of them suddenly like on the discussions almost every day because you need to see what's happening now. So
Yep.
it is still a game of leads and opportunities, but it's like now you need to see it, like you need to visualize it.
Yeah. I think what I've seen in the couple of years similar to that is definitely a switch towards ABM. So as you've said, in terms of people have realized that maybe waste on LinkedIn is too expensive.
Yeah.
And it's you can't afford it. If you could spend a certain amount of money on research to get a list of companies that you can be pretty sure that need your solution, that money is better spent than finding that out on LinkedIn
Yeah.
and optimizing through demographics. And then I feel like that there's more of an acceptance for, at the minute, definitely it's changing by some of the tools that you've mentioned, and I know some of the things maybe we're going to discuss a little bit later, but I feel there's more of an acceptance for doing the kind of middle of funnel, top of funnel type stuff, and knowing that it's going to have an impact at some point. I feel a couple of years ago, it was with a lot of clients I was working with, it was very hard to talk about brand and middle of funnel, and because it wasn't able to be measured, and because lead gen was actually so good on LinkedIn back then, it was okay. You didn't necessarily have to do it to get ROI, but yeah, that's definitely changing. So interesting to hear that from your perspective. I suppose in terms of working across multiple companies now, and to give the audience who say, I'm sure some of the audience are either starting on their LinkedIn journey, or they are maybe thinking about starting on their LinkedIn journey, would you give any advice to someone who is thinking about starting on their LinkedIn journey? Say they have a company fit, maybe they're a SaaS company, maybe they're Series A, for example, their audience is on LinkedIn, it's a competitive market. What would be the kind of first early bits of advice you would give, or what would be to put the question on you? What would be the first thing you'd look at?
So I usually ask two questions. I usually ask two questions. What is the monthly budget and what is the ASP, like the average selling price? Because these two will be able to reflect whether you have resources and stamina to play for the long game. And the long game, I say like a quarter at least. And the average selling point is because we know that LinkedIn is expensive. It's like 10 times more expensive, probably on average, than any other platform. And if your average selling point is like $200 for acquisition, so you obviously won't be able to win the LinkedIn game because it's too expensive. Then I go down to what is the market, like US obviously is the most expensive one. Which audiences, like who's your ICP in the US? Let's say CIOs. So a click on CIO can cost in the US like $80. So you definitely are losing if your ASP is $200. So usually it starts with the budget and the ASP. Usually I like every time I meet with potential clients and say, listen, like we have a monthly budget of let's say want to start with 5K. So I explain them the math of why it doesn't worth it. Take this 5K and literally put it like in PR. You will get like one or two articles, probably you'll get few ups from there. That's it, start running. But just because of the 5K, you will get average clicks like $20, $30. You don't even get, you can't test anything. The creative, the audience, the messaging, you can't test anything. You will drain the budget, you will have one campaign, you won't get leads, and you will say that it's not working. So usually like the minimum budget for my kind of clients that I say like without it don't get into LinkedIn, don't get into this game, is a minimum of 10 grand a month. And if your selling point is low, so it's tricky. For example, a lot of PLGs, like a lot of PLG companies, they have a very low ASP. So how do you win that game? So it's a bit tricky, but it's manageable.
Yeah, that's a good point about the PLG companies. I feel like it's LinkedIn ads can be tricky for them sometimes because they have such a low entry point, and people love that entry point, that talking about an enterprise solution can be tricky. It can be easy to capture, but then translating it to revenue can be sometimes tricky.
Yeah, like the audience is there, right? So the audience is there. Let's say like the developers are there, we need them, and then we need them just to install this Chrome extension because this is the entire business that we're talking about. But this is a very expensive audience. Like developers are very expensive. So when you say like when you put on a scale the amount of the cost versus what you're gonna get, so it's very difficult to you to prove it. And then there are different tools, metadata and zoom info, that basically create audience, and Clearbit create audience, like LinkedIn based audience, streamline it, shoot it out to Facebook, where Facebook should be cheaper. So then this play comes out.
Yeah, and I think another point you mentioned was just the minimum budget, and it's the case as well where I've slightly lower minimums, but they're when I do take on a client with a lower minimum, I do put that thing to them of we're not going to be able to test a whole lot here. So basically, what we're relying on is experience that I've had, as much depth of your product you can give me and your target audience, and the experience I've had to come up with a couple of tests, and we're going to test them, and there's a high likelihood they don't work. If they do work, great, but usually they don't. Usually it takes a couple of iterations of things to find out that they're going to work, and unless the company is okay with that, I don't go with it. It's not going to be good for anybody, because that's the whole thing with LinkedIn. It's sometimes you're lucky, sometimes stuff happens and you're like, okay, and you feel great then.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I know what I'm talking about. But more often than not, it's a kind of a learning experimentation process.
Exactly. So also, let's say we can talk about the dry stuff like frequency, right? So a person needs to see you X amount of time. Let's say 7 impressions to get to some kind of engagement with you. Let's say to move to another phase. 7, some say 12 impressions, like frequency of 12, frequency of 7. So just to do it with, let's say, $5,000 when you have an audience of 100K, it's impossible. Like you can't do it. So you're losing the game even before you started. So then you need to narrow the audience to a very small audience just to be able to to play with it. Something that I like, because I had few of these clients, so I came up with a solution which we started to see a success with it, and then it basically unlocked a way bigger budget. So what I said, listen, guys, we won't be able to go and do the broad thing that you want. Like we won't be able to cover the entire audience that is under your ICP. Let's work with your BDRs or SDRs, whatever. Give me a list that they are after. It will be a small list, obviously. And then let's take the small budget and try to influence this audience. And then this is what we did. Like we took it and let's call it like a Micro-ABM play. We took this 5 or 7 grand, a very small niche audience from the SDRs, and we started to bombard them with LinkedIn ads. And on a weekly basis, I would have sent a company engagement report to see which accounts are being engaged, and then shoot it out to the SDRs and the AEs, and then they would have cycled back through their systems and outreach them. And what we basically measured is the meeting sets per these accounts versus other accounts. So when you see this growing, so you're saying, listen guys, they saw us like a week ago on LinkedIn and now they booked a meeting. So you prove it that it's working on a very small budget. Now you have a reason to expand it like 5x, 3x, 10x even. So this is like the foot in the door. Give them like a candy and then take them to the entire meal.
Yeah, and I think that's changed over the years. So it's similar then if I hear people now talking about starting their LinkedIn budget with the retargeting pool or with an ABM list that's already been warmed up, or like the most valuable ICP audience that you have, narrow that and go with that. But this has changed over the years. It used to be the opposite in terms of you went into LinkedIn and just were waiting to see what sticked. And I think it's the right way to go about it personally. I think that you start niche, make sure it works, and then move out from that. Because if you don't have your most niche, most engaged audience, and you can't engage with those and convert those on LinkedIn, it's going to be very difficult. Exactly. So I think that's a good place to start. Just to switch it up a little bit and to speak about experimentation. You're always a fan of doing some cool stuff, trying new things on LinkedIn, working the platform in your favor. Is there anything you're doing at the minute? Any new ad formats, any bidding types or anything like that you're doing at the minute that you're getting excited about or that's working for you really well?
So I constantly do tests, like literally every time in every account that we have, we do tests. It can be objective based, it can be bid based, it can be anything you can imagine. Seriously, like I had one account that nothing worked. Seriously, nothing worked but carousel ads, which and they led to like direct response lead generation and to opportunities. And I never been able to beat this format. Whether in other accounts, like other clients that we have, it's a crappy ad type. Like you will never use it. It's just it like drains your budget. So you always test things, like always.
I can vouch for you, Gery, that there was always something going on.
Yeah.
There was always something going on in the account, and occasionally I get a call from Gary and be like, we're testing this. Did you know this is happening, or
Yeah,
did you know this
like,
is? And I was like, nope, I've never seen that before. That's new.
yeah. So the thing is, I have this like I'm very suspicious. Like I'm very suspicious about everything. So if someone said, listen, like if you want to get more cheaper cost per views, use that video format. No, I won't use the video format. I will try another objective. And usually, by the way, if you try another objective, you will get a CPV cheaper than video ads, like than
Yeah,
video objectives.
for sure.
And the same applies to everything. If you want to have, I don't know, if you want to get leads, make it like, I don't know, X amount of audience. No, I won't do it. I will do the opposite. And so I'm very suspicious, and I'm very like I like perfection. But this is sometimes doesn't really work for me because I know what's worked in the past, and this is the perfection for me. So I tend not to test new things because I know what worked in the past, but
Yeah.
the system always, like the software, the algorithm, the system always changes. So I keep saying to myself, like, we need to test it. Let's put X amount of budget, X percentage of budget. Let's test it.
And I think you mentioned something there that has always been my thing with LinkedIn ads, which is, and obviously when you're working at LinkedIn and you're going along the normal LinkedIn lines of this is how you do this and the best practice from this client, you should do this or whatever. I actually just went against that most of the time, and sometimes there's some stuff works really well and you can share that with clients, but most of the time I found it was the opposite, exactly what you said. If everybody's doing the lead generation objective, you shouldn't do the lead generation objective. There's probably another objective that's going to give you a cheaper placement,
Exactly.
where you're going to stand out more. And in general, the objective options, we know this because we've worked on them for years, but the objective options are just guides for people that have really never used LinkedIn before.
Correct.
That's where they should stop.
Correct.
What they actually are is just different ways of reaching your target audience and different ways of paying for your target audience.
Paying, yeah, exactly. Paying
yeah.
is the key. A lot of times I get, yeah, we want to do awareness, right? So we want to do awareness, and we'll choose the brand awareness objective. So if you choose the brand awareness objective, you're going to pay the highest amount of cost CPMs. It will drain your budget in a second. Just because you're paying for impressions, you shouldn't pay for impressions. You can pay for clicks, and you get these impressions cheaper. And so do it. Don't waste your budget on awareness objectives. So yeah, it comes, I think, with experience. Like a lot of people are saying, yeah, like you said, like they're new to the game. We want to do brand awareness. We're going to click on brand awareness, and then that's it.
Yeah, and sometimes by accident it just works.
Yeah.
So there's people definitely listening here being like, I want brand awareness and I'm doing the brand awareness objective and it's working great for me.
Amazing.
That can happen.
Yeah. Keep it. Don't change it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's just when you want to push a little bit further and you want to test things, there's usually other ways of doing things.
Yeah.
Cool.
And also, I just want to say, like, a lot of times you're trying to hack the system. You're trying to see, okay, how can I hack the algorithm? How can I make it work better than getting cheaper stuff? I can say that from one experiment, we're being able to expand it to a very massive operation. We just said, you know what, let's take the audience that we have and put a daily budget of $20. Like the bare minimum. I think the bare minimum is $10. We put $20. We saw that with time it just brought conversions because it was able to exceed this $20 to the right person to convert. So what we did, we simply duplicated, cloned hundreds of campaigns, $20, and that's it. And you suddenly see the system works way different than you can imagine. The cost per leads were very cheap. So we managed to hack it. We managed to for a while. Now I'm not sure now it's working, the system, but it was very difficult to maintain because everything is manual. You have hundreds of campaigns, 5 or 6 ads in every campaign, then you need to optimize it somehow. But yeah, we managed to hack it and we managed to bring great results.
Do you think that brings up a question that I think about, but I've never actually voiced, I suppose? Do you think the LinkedIn system will be hackable forever? Or do you think it's getting to a stage of maturity that it's becoming more and more difficult?
I think that this is a question for a very early stage performance. Like
Yeah.
Hackable is okay, you're gonna hack it and you're gonna get a cost per lead instead of $200 for 150. All right, so this is the hack. Great.
Yeah.
But eventually the story here is not on the cost per lead and also not cost per click. It's none of that. It's like how many out of these accounts or contacts being able to convert down the funnel. This is the thing. So I always say it. I don't care paying $1,000 per lead. I really don't care. I don't mind. Although my clients say, listen, our goal is 350, our goal is 200. I don't honestly, I don't care about this goal because I can give you tons of leads in 250. None of them will convert down the funnels. Then you will come back to me and say, listen, nothing is converting. So anyways, I'm doing my work bad, right? Because I'm not converting anything. So this is, I think it's hackable up to a certain degree, but it's only helps us as marketers on the early stage of the funnel. Eventually,
Yeah.
the entire work now is not like a B2B marketer is different than B2C marketer, I think, because he needs to understand the funnel itself. Like you cannot bring leads. If you're gonna bring leads only, you will fail because you need to see what happens. You need to treat them differently and to make sure they convert down the funnel. And this is up on you. Like I always say, I'm responsible for the leads I bring. Nobody else, not the SDR, not the AE. It's our job. We bring the lead. We need to make sure they convert.
And I think the simplicity of the B2C marketer and the traditional B2C paid social marketer, say on Facebook or whatever, has actually made B2B marketers' lives very difficult, because when you speak to a CEO or someone like that who doesn't really know marketing, and they're just like, oh, what's our cost per click or what's our
Yeah,
cost per lead, and the conversation happens, like it's still happening to this day, when obviously B2B marketing people are accepting that it's much more complex and tricky, but the conversation is still happening where I'm getting an email saying, oh, our cost per click is too high, and I'm like, just get out of the account.
exactly.
If the pipeline is good, the
Yeah, I
rest
don't care.
should not matter.
Like,
Yeah.
exactly. If the pipeline is good, the rest should not matter, and you should pay for a lead as much as the ASP, like the average selling price. This is it.
Yeah.
If your average price is 30 grand, great. You can pay for one lead 30 grand as long as it converts, like 100% conversion rate to an opportunity and close one. You should be fine with it. It's a different thing when you're gonna trying to scale and bring more business like to the system. But yeah, the only way I think that the only time it matters is like on Google when you would like to be like first on page above your competitors and above other keywords and other searches. So yeah, it should matter. Nowadays, actually, what I'm looking at is like there is a thing that you can see how many times your ads being like in top three places on LinkedIn and then in top 20. So I'm trying to do the correlation. I did it. Haven't really found any like direct correlation between whether your ads are being shown in the top three placements on LinkedIn's feed versus the 20, like the other 20 placements, and how does it correlate with the leads and conversion rates. I haven't found any kind of correlation. I did it on a very massive data set. I think it was like a half year ago. I'm going to do it again just to see if there is kind of correlation. Because if you say, yeah, like the top three ads convert like 20% more with
Yeah.
cheaper play, so you need to make sure you're going to reach it. And how do you reach it? This is the question. How, if it's true, how do you reach it? A lot of, and I'll just add to that, a lot of LinkedIn reps saying, listen, your campaign score is low. You need to change your scoring for the campaigns. I never saw a correlation between campaign scoring to anything happens, either all the lead or the cost per click or conversion rates. I don't care if the my campaign score is like rank is 1 or 0 or I don't know, 10, as long as like it's converting, as long as the ad is converting.
Yeah, it's something I just like to see high because it makes my bids cheaper.
Yeah.
If you're running on a CTR, that's it. But again, it's not something I posted about it before on LinkedIn, and then I noticed everyone got obsessed about it. They were like, "Oh, quality score." So I had to post
Yeah.
again, and I was like, "Yeah, it's nice, but it actually, if it doesn't necessarily matter. It's not something I do. It's just something I take note of, but it's not something I measure."
Yeah, and I can say the same for CTRs. I have times where my best ad that converts the best with the lowest cost per lead is not with the highest CTR, and it's fine. And I don't want it to be zero point 0.5, 0.7, where is the benchmark. I want it to convert. So I don't
Yeah.
care if it's like 0.2 as long as it converts. So when someone and they come to me, like, say, listen, this ad isn't performing well. It's like
Yeah.
0.2. No, it performs great.
It's the best one.
Exactly. It's the best one.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the LinkedIn ad rotations as well. You need to basically turn that off because it just takes in CTR and
Yeah,
doesn't
exactly.
take in pipeline or anything else like that.
Right.
So you've had different ways of managing LinkedIn throughout the years and different types of tools to enhance it. Is there anything you're using at the minute that is enhancing the LinkedIn ads experience outside of LinkedIn?
So I would say no. In the past, we used like a very robust tool, but it wasn't like in very large scale. But now it's like mainly manual. I have my own tools that we develop for the company. Like the one example is that some accounts, some clients need like a tailored UTMs or dynamic UTMs, or they need UTMs up until the ad ID because then they streamline the data through the ad IDs up to the opportunity. This is something that is it takes a lot of time to create UTMs unless you use like HubSpot can do you some like dynamic UTMs, but it's not that granular and not that dynamic that the way you need it. So we developed like tools for us that help us like create dynamic UTMs every time you create a new ad, new campaign. So it's simply dynamic, it saves tons of time. So this is like the heavy lift for us. It was it like we had like hundreds of campaigns, thousands of ads, and you need to restructure everything. You need to reshuffle everything. You just find yourself like days over days creating UTMs on Excel sheet, although it has a formula, but tons of time. So we developed this tool, so it helps us a lot.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, there's a couple of things floating around, but yeah, there's it can be really expensive to pay for some of
Exactly.
the bigger tools. And I feel like you can do quite a lot in the LinkedIn Campaign Manager. It's getting better and better. It used to be terrible, and it is getting better and faster and more responsive and less bugs. There still is quite a lot, but yeah, it's getting better. But it's definitely not there yet. And I think from a functional point of view, do you feel like there's anything that's a big opportunity for LinkedIn?
I think reporting is the
Yeah.
biggest thing now. It's like, seriously, it's like there there is no reporting on LinkedIn. Let's say nothing. You cannot understand anything that can give you any kind of value on your campaigns. So CTRs you can see it, leaks you can see nothing that helps you. And the secret of LinkedIn is not on the first touch. It's always that let's call it a dark social dark funnel where
Mm-hmm.
you can't see it. And this is the big, I think that the biggest thing here. Now LinkedIn, I know that they're working on it. It's called like a white clean room or white room, something like this, where you will be able, hopefully, you will be able to see this kind of the dark funnel attribution. But yeah, imagine that most of our clients are using like the obviously, how did you hear about us? So if it says LinkedIn, so it automatically attributes the lead to LinkedIn, although they haven't converted to LinkedIn. So I think that reporting is one of the biggest like things that they must solve.
Yep, for sure. It's one on a long list of things,
Yeah,
but it's
but the,
definitely one of the biggest.
exactly, yeah.
So let's speak of the positive things, the new things that have been introduced recently. So I'd like to get your thoughts on thought leader ads. So how have you been using them? How have you been using them? What do you think? Because I have conflicting opinions of them. I've seen them work well and not, and I've seen some conflicting opinions, but I want to get your thoughts on it.
So I think it's a good like it really we tested it. I wouldn't say like in a massive scale, but we do tested it, and I think it's good for like personal and brand awareness mainly. We did see some opportunities coming out of it, but it's mainly to get the thought leader out there to the audience. So on the awareness side of things, I think it's okay being able maybe to do like employee advocacy and stuff like this, but I don't think it can be like a main pillar of the activity of the account. It can be like a side, like something on the side. If you have like social budgets, you can have like brand budgets, so you can definitely use it to leverage it to do like thought leaderships. Yeah, I saw different tactics trying to do lead gen out of it, but once it's too salesy, so it simply won't work. Like, so this is why it's like
Yeah.
very soft.
Yeah. I think at the start people got extremely excited about it because they were like, oh, it's getting 8%
Yeah,
CTRs and stuff like that. And what really happened was it was just the brand awareness CTR, where it takes in basically anyone who happens to, even if you look at a brand awareness ad, some people, they can be nearly attributed as a click, because anything you touch is a click on brand awareness. So that's why it had such high CTRs, and obviously because it was new and people were interested in it. But when you really break it down, so I've done a couple of tests just in terms of adding a link, a soft link that you'd have as a brand awareness ad, and in general it's actually working out in terms of costs, and in terms of a lot of what I measure at the minute is quality engagements. So it's an engagement that I can measure as an action that has brought someone to maybe the next level of content. And I was measuring quality engagements for thought leader ads, and it was evening out in a lot of the tests. It was evening out, if not a little bit more expensive, for a brand.
yeah,
Now, I did hear an interesting thought on it on the last podcast, which was Jean Burke said it would be interesting to do as like the very first layer. So do a before as a cold audience or a cold plus audience, where you just basically reach everybody in your audience with a thought leader ad, and then start your funnel.
yeah. Again, everything within your, again, like this awareness funnel, right? So you start with something, or either you have it like on the remarketing phase when you see the person from, you can use it for SDRs or AEs, or trying to reach specific person or specific group of person, and then suddenly they will see them in front of them, right? Because you boost them. So it can be in many places, but I don't think it can be like a main pillar of the activity. Something that we actually now testing is, which a lot of advertisers are asked for, is the ability of linking from Sales Navigator to LinkedIn audience. So there is this audience now, it's in beta, we're testing it right now, and it seems to be working great. So these type of things can really change the entire kind of funnel that you work on. So you have Sales Navigator reach out from the SDRs for a specific group of people that being saved as leads or accounts, and then this same audience being streamlined to your LinkedIn ads, to the LMS, and then you bombard them with whatever ads you want. So now you have a closed loop, closed audience, where it's like circling back 360. The one thing that I really love about it is that on Sales Navigator you have audiences, like titles that you don't have on LMS. Like there are simply because people can write whatever they want on their LinkedIn profile, head of junk removal, for example, let's say.
Yeah.
So there isn't any kind of title like this on the ads level, but you still can write it, and you can find them on Sales Navigator, because Sales Navigator searches are based on keywords. Like you type anything and it will find it. So now you can simply take this audience with where you couldn't target it on LinkedIn because the title doesn't exist. You create the audience on Sales Navigator, save it, and it streamlines to LinkedIn, like to the LMS, and now it's like a complete audience. So this type of tests, I really like this type of products.
Is that completely beta? It's you're getting that
Yeah, it's
from. Okay.
100 accounts worldwide, and I'm lucky to have one access.
Because people are crying out for that.
Yeah,
That's it's it was a thing a couple of years ago, very similar, called Project Stereo, I think it was, and it was exactly that in theory, but it just didn't work. So it got shut down, and maybe to and rethinking about it. So you're saying it does have potential. It is potentially working this time around.
it is potentially working. It is like actually live in our accounts, and we're seeing results out of it. So it's great.
Okay, cool. Is there anyone, or I suppose to put the question in a different way, where do you keep on top of LinkedIn ads? So where do you learn from? Is there anyone that you can recommend, or is it all internal? Because there's a lot of people that speak on LinkedIn, myself included, but I know there's so many other LinkedIn experts who are either learning it by themselves, learning from people in their organization who don't post on LinkedIn. You don't post as much, and I know you have a lot of information, so I'm interested to understand where you get your learning from.
Yeah, I don't post that much just because I don't have time, and I
Yeah.
don't really have a lot of time of reading, honestly. But I know that there are great people out there that They do like great content about LinkedIn. One which I really love reading and hearing their podcast is AJ Wilcox, just because he's been there for a while, really. He's a gladiator. I think like we're almost maybe at the same time in the industry, and I think that he has this mindset of testing things like I do. Like he would go into the very narrowest layer of anything he can test, and he will test it and he will talk about it. So I think that any kind of if you want to be a LinkedIn expert, you should listen to whatever he says because he's not talking about bullshit. Like, yeah, increase the bid, remove the bid. I don't know, this CTR. No, he actually talks about, I would say, like how LinkedIn is being wired on the back end, what type of objective you should test to do, like how audience size should be work with the correlation of cost per clicks. Like he's actually goes to very granular level. So the ones like people who actually like, want to master LinkedIn ads, definitely go to this guy. But sometimes it's like too much. Sometimes like for the regular like campaign manager that runs like I don't know 1, 2 accounts, not a big budget. He doesn't need to know all this stuff. But yeah, I really love hearing him, like what he says because he actually has like practical stuff that you can actually use.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree, and I love AJ and how he thinks about LinkedIn as well because exactly as you said, he was there from the start
Yeah.
when it was just the bones of Campaign Manager and when you could actually clearly see how it was built.
Yeah.
You could see how stuff was working and you could see how the algorithm was, they were manipulating it and when they were changing it. So he has that back, as you do, he has that kind of back catalogue of knowledge in terms of when a change happens, it's really evident. You can see that something's after happening. And I think that's an advantage for LinkedIn Campaign Manager to have, but then for people to learn from, it's good to have someone like that as a point of reference with that mindset.
Exactly. And also like the B2B academy that LinkedIn has, right?
Yeah.
So I also read from their side what type of products they have. I must say that I'm in touch with a lot of like product managers on LinkedIn. I'm very lucky to help them to develop some of their products or being able to hear what they think about new products and how they develop it. Also from their end, I can see like what they're trying to develop, what they're trying to build, what they're like, they really need us, the advertisers, to give them our opinion on what they are thinking about, like what they're trying to build. I can say that I've been in a few of them, like the landing page, like we all have the landing page sections on our LMS on the right side, on the left side. It's not in use, but I've been working with them, helping them to develop it like conceptually. And also the revenue attribution report, which we have on the business manager. Also, I've been there like from the start, trying to help them to keep it up. So I'm looking like what they're doing from their end, product development side, so I know what they're working on. And also like I love hearing other people doing different tests like AJ. So I mix everything together and I know this plus this is what we're gonna get.
That's something they definitely needed over the years, and I think to be speaking to the likes of you, to AJ, and to some other really talented LinkedIn ad specialist is great. It's only going to be good for LinkedIn ads because that's who they need to be talking to because it benefits everybody. And I think the good thing about working with you and back in the day when it was WalkMe and the WalkMe guys was you were always pushing them that little bit more, and that was great because it got the product team interested. They were always curious to see what you were doing and why you were doing it. So that's brought, I think, LinkedIn ads on a long way, and I'm sure a lot of the stuff that happens in the future it'll be down to the work of people like you. So good on you, Gery.
Thanks.
Behind you.
Thank you. I think that like LinkedIn ads it's not just LinkedIn ads. It's like the entire funnel of the person. So people are talking about attribution should be last click, first click, should be like MMMs. Like I think personally it's all crap. Honestly, like no last, no first. It's nice for you to have it because when you say it's a last click or it's a first click, so you can justify the budget, right? So you say it's a first click, it's first time it clicked, this is my budget. No, but this last click it should be my budget. Personally, I had people on my team. They managed, one person managed both Facebook and Google, and they got one lead from Google, and he didn't know where to assign it, to Facebook or Google. He was like arguing between himself, like, where should I put the lead? It's like my lead, but where should I put it? And it's funny because eventually, like, I look at this, like, it's throughout the entire, like, first click, last click, everything in the middle. Did LinkedIn attribute it somehow, like in the click, in the impression, in the person that says, I heard about you from LinkedIn months ago, let's say. So you need to like aggregate everything that you have from LinkedIn and say this is like the value of LinkedIn, because LinkedIn ads is not only the LinkedIn ad, it's the impact, it's the like the waves that it does on the account, on the person throughout the funnel. And this is what we need to like when you start measuring it and looking at it like this, which is very difficult to do, to measure it, but when you start measuring it, so the entire perspective of where to put the budget, how like the ROI of LinkedIn changes suddenly.
But how do you then divide up between channels? So say in terms of it's difficult to, with the attribution of impressions and stuff like that, to really give a concrete value. How do you think about that?
Because when you have, again, it's like this method is more for when you have a bit more budget. So it's
Yeah.
very easy because then let's say you don't know if LinkedIn is working or not, right? Because you say, yeah, like some person wrote, I heard about you from LinkedIn. Great, cool, but you don't see the lead from, you don't see anything. The easiest way to do is just simply pause it and see what happens. See what happens to the entire system. And usually what I see, like the direct correlation is between LinkedIn ad spend and what I call them like the brand clusters, which are organic search, direct search, and Google paid brand. So when you increase the budget on LinkedIn, all these, like this cluster, should be increasing in volume of leads. When you pause it, it will go down with you. So then you're saying, okay, so I increased the budget on LinkedIn, I have more leads on direct. So are there like there should be attributed to LinkedIn or to direct? You don't care. You just need to know that when you
Mm.
increase the budget, you get more leads. And you need to know where to put the efforts on. It's the same as YouTube. So YouTube, let's look at Monday. So Monday did like tons of YouTube ads back at the time that made them Monday. It's very difficult to pinpoint which ad was working or what type of specific audience was working. But you know that when you spend money on YouTube, you get an uplift across other channels. So the same applies to any kind of, I would call them demand gen channels. LinkedIn is a demand gen channel. YouTube is a demand gen channel. Like you create the demand, you put the word out there, and then something happens. Something is following. You don't know what is following, but the numbers are simply following.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the tricky point for people is realizing that LinkedIn is a demand gen channel.
Yeah.
It's where people come to learn. It's where, look, the way people come to LinkedIn and YouTube is different, right? I feel like people go to Facebook and Instagram to spend time, whereas where you go to YouTube and LinkedIn, you want something back. You want to learn something, you want a job from LinkedIn, you want to sell something, or so that's for me what dictates a demand gen channel, is that you're going to gain something, and if someone or an advertiser can give you something or provide you with some education or something, when you're in that mindset, you're creating demand. It's much harder to do on other channels, and I feel like LinkedIn, people don't give it the credit for that side of it just yet. Some
Yeah.
people do, but a lot just see it as a lead tool still.
Yeah, because again, like a lot of like I think it comes from the VCs, where you say, yeah, we invested money, you have money, show us the money back. So then they want to
Yeah,
see it, they want to see the money, they want to see the cash flow coming, they want to see the pipeline being created. But it's something that isn't created in a day. It takes
yeah,
a lot of time. It takes a lot of touch points. It takes a lot of like it takes a lot of time simply to make it happen.
yeah.
And the ones that have time and have budget simply win the game. And I see it all the time.
Time, budget, and the right people and
Exactly.
strategy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, if you have all those things together, the last thing you need is patience,
Right.
and, and then you're onto something. But yeah, I think on that note, we might wrap it up there, Gary. It's been an absolute pleasure. As expected, it was full of value, full of stuff for me to go away and think about, and hopefully for the audience as well. That was always the way when we used to have calls, was I'd go away thinking about things, and I was like, maybe that could work, or maybe I
Yeah.
can do this or that. It's always a pleasure speaking to you, Gary.
Likewise, Rob.
So yeah, thanks a million, and hope everyone enjoyed that, and see you all soon.
Cheers.